And Karen, we'll start.
Okay, Ed, I was going to say, Ed, are you okay with me doing it, or do you want to take it? You need to unmute. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yay!
All right. I am not going to be able to handle the West Cedar Street application.
Okay.
So I'm going to be out of here.
Okay. So I'll start us off. I'd like to call to order the Conservation Commission in the Wetland Agency meeting. It is Thursday, September 10th. It's exactly 6 o'clock. Can I have the roll call, please?
Karen DeStefanis.
Here.
Ed Holowinko.
Here.
John Mailing.
Here.
Stephen Clockey.
Here.
Matt Pence.
Here.
Cheryl Brown.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so first up is receipt and discussion. We have item S20, 552, 10 Holiday Drive, DeSimone, corrective action, restoration of a wetland, watercourse, and upland review area.
Right, so this is Holiday Drive, which is in the eastern part of Norwalk off of Murray Street. As you might have recalled, they had received a notice of violation in July for doing some work in and adjacent to the wetland in the rear of the house, rear of the property. They have submitted a corrective action application. This is the first time that you're able to see it tonight due to your meeting cancellations in July and August. But basically what they're proposing, and the applicant is here tonight, so I'm sure he can speak more about the proposal. What they're proposing is to revegetate the wetland, mostly with a native seed mix. And then they would like to keep a path on the northern side property line, and to keep a portion of the gravel path that's in the center of the property in the wetland. But other than that, the rest of the wetland is proposed to be restored with a native seed mix. The property owner is also asking that you consider two ancillary activities that are not corrective action, but are just within the upland review area or within the wetland. One is the installation of a patio at the rear of the residence. And then the applicant would also like to install a sprinkler system in the entire rear yard. And as you might recall, the part of the rear yard has been maintained as lawn, but it is also wetland. So a sprinkler system would be within the lawn portion of the wetland, not within the wetland area that he is proposing to restore as part of his corrective action permit. Mr. DeSimone, if you'd like to add anything.
I think, first of all, I'm glad that we finally able to get together between power outages and issues. I know we've been delayed. You've pretty much summarized what I'm trying to do. If I can ask you, Alexis, do you have can you put up the soil, wetland soil analysis that was done, the map, so they can see the areas that we're discussing?
Sure. Essentially.
So if you can see this, my property is 306 in the middle of the screen. The wetlands flags are designated as 1 through 5 and then 101 through 107. So the wetlands actually start in the established lawn just below the above ground pool and extend almost to the back end of the property. You can see there's corners on both sides that are non-wetlands, marked as, I believe it's 45. And right below 3, where you see that kind of line going across, that's kind of demarcation between what is the established lawn and what the wooded area is. So behind that line, slightly behind that line is where the wooded area begins, and that's where the violations occurred. Above that line to the house has been an established lawn for the amount of time that we've been here, which is over 30 years. So the violations that were cited were all in the wooded area of the wetlands. Is any questions on the wetlands map? Okay, Alexis, if you just show one other one, if you could show them figure D on the permit. Since we covered all of the details of the wetlands violations at the show cause hearing, per Alexis's suggestion, I was just going to focus in on the corrective actions. So I just wanted to show you the areas that Alexis was discussing. So basically what it is, so that's figure E. Well, you can leave that up for a second. Figure E shows where the additional work is that I'm requesting. Maybe hard to see, but there's a patio listed right next to the property. I'm not sure if you can highlight that, Alexis, where the patio is. The only reason it's there is it's roughly about 45 feet from the start of the wetlands area. So it's adjacent to the home, going up to the deck to the side of it. But because technically it's within roughly 45 feet of the wetlands area, I included it on here for application of approval. And again, it's within the lawn area, not the wet wooded area. So on figure D, this is where the main violations were. The areas marked as 1, 2, and 3 that are circled are primarily where Alexis has identified where the vegetation was either removed or damaged. So the proposed action is to restore that wetlands area with New England seed mix in the areas marked as 1, 2, and 3, with the request that in section 1, that's about a 14 to 15 foot opening, and that is also access to the non-wetlands area in the back. So I was requesting that if I could leave a 3 or 4 foot pathway in the area designated as 1, just so I have access to the non-wetlands area at the rear of the property. But the remainder of that area, as well as areas 2 and 3, will be reseeded with wetlands mixed to restore the vegetation that was there previously. The gravel path in the middle is actually covering what was a dirt path. There was no vegetation ever there. It was just a dirt path providing access to the back of the wooded area. And it was covered up with a small amount of gravel to just cover the path and make it more accessible. The other area that I think Alexis might not have mentioned is there was a depression that was dug up in error by the landscaper. It's shown right at the end of the gravel path. That was not supposed to have been done. That was a mistake by the landscaper. So I've requested the ability to at least put that hole back to it's a very deep, uneven hole right now with exposed rocks and other things. So I'm just asking to restore it back to its previous configuration and just make it so that it's not a danger to any animals or people that may be walking back there.
What would you fill it with?
Basically the fill that's in the area. The fill was basically just dug up and dumped alongside the area. It wasn't removed from the wooded area. So it's not to fill the depression. The depression's about 12 to 14 inches, I'm sorry, 12 to 18 inches deep. So I'm just trying to fill the ragged edges so that it's a smooth surface similar to what it was before it was dug up.
Got it. Thank you.
So those are the corrective actions. It's basically repairing the hole and replacing the vegetation that was removed.
Question about the sprinkler system?
Yeah, if you can show figure E.
Wait, before we do that, can we just stay on, I just had a couple questions about the restoration. So when you talk about a 3 to 4 foot wide path in that section 1 area,
Yes.
are you going to keep it along the property line in the middle of that 14-foot swath or to the east?
It could be anywhere, whatever is amenable. I just want access to the back. So whether it's on either, it could either be along the property line, in the middle of the path. I'm not really, I'm open. I just need to have, I just want access to the back. And if I fill it completely with seed mix, I'm not sure. My neighbor has seed mix, which I guess he doesn't maintain. And so I'm just concerned that if it grows too high, it makes that area inaccessible.
Okay. My other question is for the gravel path that's that you're requesting remain. Why would you want that to remain?
Well, it was put down primarily because when it got very wet back there, that dirt path would fill with water, and so it would make it difficult to walk back there. And so I just put the gravel path to make it easier to maintain. Again, it's over a dirt path, so there was no vegetation before, and it would actually be a significant amount of effort now to remove the gravel that was put down there that's covering a dirt path.
Okay, so it's a wooded wetland, but you're not planning to do any further work in there.
No, but I access back there. Sometimes there's down branches, there's trees that come down, and just need to be able to access the wooded area because there are a lot of trees back there, and many times we'll have branches come down or things come down that I just need to go back and clean up a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask my question about the sprinkler?
Yes, that's
Are
figure
you
8.
planning, is that sprinkler is going to go inside the wetlands area?
Well, here's it. Yes, it's the thing is my wetlands start from the lawn area, which is established, continuing all the way to the back of the property. So I'm requesting to be able to put sprinklers within the lawn portion of the established portion of the wetlands, if possible. You can see roughly where that line is, the wetlands marker. There's a large area of established lawn on the wetlands, in designated wetlands right now before the wooded area starts. So I'm requesting permission to put sprinklers within the lawn area of the wetlands.
Okay, but when you say sprinklers, does that mean something that somebody digs up and puts in lines and puts in sprinkler heads and?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it's just I'm not talking about, just putting a hose back there with lawn sprinklers. I'm talking about a sprinkler system that would dig a small trench and actually put sprinkler heads in that area.
Irrigation system.
Irrigation system, yes, I'm sorry, that's a better term.
What is the impact of such a system on a wetlands area? I guess that's more of a...
Again, I'm not sure because right now that's an established lawn. So there's all that's back there is grass. There's no wet, although it's designated wetlands, it's always been an established lawn for as long as we've owned the property.
Which you said was about 30 years?
Yes, we moved here in 1987 and that's been an established lawn since the time we've moved here.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to irrigate the lawn portion of the wetlands as far back as I'll be allowed to go, up to just prior to the wooded area, if that's acceptable. If not, I can stop the sprinkler heads short of that. Although there's not a stream back there, I believe it's called the waterway, but there's no stream there. There never has been, but I can stop it short of that waterway if that's appropriate.
So that so-called stream, is that a drainage? I mean, is that something?
I'm not sure what it is because there's never been anything there other than it was really the demarcation between where the lawn was and the woods were.
But is it, so in rainy weather, it doesn't fill up with water, water doesn't move?
It's an intermittent water course.
It does fit well. I had a bigger problem filling up more recently, without going into detail, when my neighbor did some work in his property on 8 Holiday Drive. Prior to him restoring his wetlands, I would have more of a water area back there because I'd get runoff from his property and it would tend to congregate along the back section because that was a low area. He had removed some trees that were separating our properties. However, when he restored his wetlands last year, he replanted trees and wetlands back there. So now the runoff, we haven't had a bad storm to tell, but the runoff seems to have abated. So the water that would tend to congregate back there, I'm hoping has been resolved by the fact of him restoring his wetlands.
Okay, but I mean, there is a way with an irrigation system to have more or less localized sprinklers in the lawn area and then have a more general and broader spray that goes out across the wetlands area without actually having to dig trenches into it.
Well, if you want to go back, I guess my question is, I've had several irrigation companies come out and give me an estimate, and I did point out to them that the flags are still on my property. So I did point out to them that there is wetlands
Right.
within the sprinkler system. So if you can go back to figure E again, Alexis. So, you know, one of the questions would be, if I put sprinkler heads right up to the wetlands border, and then how far could they spread back into the one area without actually digging up the wetlands area? Is that your
Well,
question?
I'm concerned with anything that breaks into or breaks up the wetlands area any more than currently is. If there's a way technologically to provide you with the water cover that you want without having to dig it up, I think that would be preferable.
So so with that comment, would it be acceptable to put sprinkler heads up to the start of the wetlands markers, not into the wetlands?
Well, I would have to defer to staff on where that would sit. But anything that doesn't, you know, anything that slows down breaking ground in the wetlands area is to be, you know, emphasized, I think. The lawn is what the lawn is. I mean, you can't turn that back into wetlands. And you do need to keep it wet seasonally. But the area in the back, the wooded area, you know, I just don't know. How far back did you?
Well, no, I'm not looking to irrigate the wooded area at all. The problem is the lawn area, in particular this summer, being very dry. A large portion of it has died off, basically. And it was impossible to try to keep it irrigated by just using, you know, handmade sprinkler systems. So I'm not recommending anything that would shoot water into the wooded area. It would simply be within the established lawn. But
Do you have
part of the established lawn is in the wetlands, technically?
I understand that. Do you have an irrigation system elsewhere on your property?
I do not. That's why I got an estimate to install one in the front. Definitely gonna do the front of my property, and I was hoping to at least do a portion of the back, as much as I could do under approval.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
So to that question, Alexis, I mean, I know this is not the intent is not to approve anything tonight, but at the next meeting, which would hopefully be for approval, do I need to submit something else regarding the sprinkler system? Because I guess I can have the irrigation company go as far back as I'm allowed. I could stop short, or I can go to the edge of the lawn. How do I determine what would be acceptable to the commission?
Well, it sounds like at least one commissioner has concerns about the installation in the wetland. I don't know if anyone else has
I would second that.
Yeah,
As far as the soil disturbance, I mean, we do already have a lawn, but it just kind of adds to the disturbance that's occurring in those soils.
I don't think we're, you know, saying that there should not be an irrigation system. I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out what system is least intrusive.
is it possible?
The system I was proposing would be, as you said, you know, trenching. Basically, I guess they dig about a 2-inch or so trench. From what I understand, it doesn't really disrupt the property very much. It's just a small trench, but they would be sprinkler heads installed in that area as well. So I'm amenable to whatever restrictions I may have. I'm just trying to decide or determine how far back I can go. Can I go up to the wetlands marker? Can I go into the wetlands somewhat? That's for the area that's still an established lawn.
Do you think you can ask the irrigation folks if they were to put it 3 feet before the wetland line, would it still cover the lawn?
It would cover a section of the lawn. I'm not sure if they could. It's probably a good, if I look at the back property, I have probably about, I would say 40 to 50 feet of lawn below the wetlands, established lawn. So I can, so what you're saying is if we didn't go any further than the wetlands markers, how much of the wetlands could I cover if I just simply stopped the heads at the beginning of the wetlands? Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that much about irrigation, but it would seem to me that you could probably cover quite a bit if you did that.
I probably can. I can ask them if, you know, how far an area they could cover if, again, if the sprinklers ended at the wetlands markers.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Um,
that
Might
would
that be
seem-
acceptable if they come back and say that that would be adequate?
Yeah, I mean, what would be great if there was a little buffer before the wetland. So if you had, 1 or 2, maybe 3 feet before the wetland, that would definitely, in my opinion, be more reasonable.
You mean for the actual placement of the sprinkler heads?
Right.
Not necessarily the water distribution, because that would be into the lawn area, but not physically dig up within 2 or 3 feet of the flags.
Correct. That was my thought. Yeah.
Okay,
I agree with that.
okay, I can ask.
Alexis, what do you think about this? Because I really have mixed feelings since it's been an established lawn for 30 years. Does it really, at this point, is it a wetland? I mean, yeah, it's been mapped that way, but does it function as a wetland? It seems to me that it functions as a lawn.
Yeah, I would say that it is a regulatory wetland that is a lawn.
And has been for
For 30
plus
years, right, I understand that. So I guess I'm not so hung up on where you're placing the irrigation sprinklers, maybe not to the very end of not to the beginning of the wooded area, but I don't know if you necessarily have to have a buffer in front of it either. So I guess I'm asking Alexis what her opinion is.
Yeah, I guess I am more concerned about the adequacy of the proposed wetland restoration plan for the area that had been wooded in the rear part of the wetland, as opposed to the front part of the wetland that has been maintained as lawn historically.
I agree with that. Why can't we just leave the wetland alone and like get as close as we possibly can to the way it was before we decided to adventure into it?
Right. So I guess as far as the sprinklers, yes, there's a little bit of disturbance. It's generally kind of a splice and then a hose in the head. It will make the wetland lawn area wetter. But I don't know if it will characteristically change that lawn wetland. I guess I would be more interested in, do you feel that the proposed restoration within the wooded wetland is sufficient? And are you satisfied with the seed mix, which is a native, he is proposing the wet mix, which is a native wetland seed mix that has a variety of grasses and forbs within it. And I guess that's what I would focus on.
Well, I think, Mr. DeSimone, when you were referring to the mix, you were referring to that, were you not? I mean,
Yes, in the wooded area, because that is where the vegetation was either removed or damaged.
right.
So based on discussions with Alexis, her recommendation was to reseed that area with a New England wetlands mix to restore the vegetation.
New England wetlands plant wet mix is what staff pointed out. I don't know the details, but that seems to be an acceptable way to go.
Okay.
I have a question. What kind of plant material was removed from the wooded wetland? Was it shrubs? Was it trees?
There were no trees removed. I don't, just to go back quickly, when we had these show cause, I know it was about 6 weeks ago, the main area that was impacted, I had significant amount of debris in large areas of the wooded area. And I had put in a request, which was approved, to remove the debris and the basically garbage and everything that accumulated over the years. And either through, it was not intentional, either through the excess removal of material that was on the ground. We didn't remove any trees, nothing was cut down, but it was mostly just ground cover that may have been damaged or removed in the process. So it was really just, I would say, ground cover that was impacted. But no trees were cut down, no vegetation was intentionally dug up or removed.
Right.
Yeah,
So all of the ground vegetation was pretty much removed. And then some of the understory material that had been there. So
I think it would be nice to replace some of that ground material, which were probably, I mean, there may have been some ferns in there and maybe some smaller shrubs, wetland shrubs that can handle some of the shade conditions that are under there. That would help stabilize the soil. And, some of the seed mix will do okay in the shade, but some of that seed mix won't. So you're going to kind of get some spottiness. So, you know, maybe adding some perennials and some shrubs to the restoration may help as well.
Well, and is it clear what's happening with the dug depression?
Yeah, that was my question too. Mr. DeSimone, are you planning on seeding that area?
It was not seeded before. I'm not sure if you go back to I had a large depressed area before that would collect water. If you go back to figure D, I believe it is. Yeah, that area that's dotted, it's hard to see there, but right at the end of the gravel path, there's a large, and I think Alexis can attest to this, there's a large depressed area back there that tends to pond when it gets rainy and water just collects there. And what happened was we were trying to just see if it was filled with debris and leaves, etc. We were trying to determine if that area was suitable for possibly any type of planting. And rather than the landscaper just simply clearing out the debris, they dug it up. So my intent is to restore that back and keep that depressed area back there, which collects water whenever it rains.
Yeah, so I had originally advised Mr. DeSimone to just leave the dug area as is. I'm looking for a photograph of it now.
And I can see that. I'm just concerned about the rough surfaces there. If any animals are back there or any kids are walking back there, it's just a very ragged area right now because of the way it was dug up.
Well, maybe if we got rid of the gravel path, they wouldn't be tempted to go back there and check it out.
Well, I can't prevent animals from going back there.
Yeah, just the kids.
Yeah, I think the animals can take care of themselves.
They'll be all right.
The little humans that you got to worry about. I kind of agree with Steve. I'm not thrilled with keeping the gravel path there. I think that's just an invitation to go on in back there. And if you get rid of it, eventually it'll grow over and you won't see anything. Oh, it's not that, it doesn't look that bad.
No, there's just some exposed rocks and things. I mean, if it's acceptable, I can leave it as is. It would be extra work for me to fill it. I can leave it if that's the recommendation and just leave it in its current state.
What do the commissioners think about that? Leaving it as is? Anyone?
I think it ought to be at least somewhat refilled with the fill that's spread around the margins of it. I would think at some point it would, unless there's a plan to turn it into a pond, I think it might well become one.
And it was actually a ponded area before. It was collecting water, as I said before. It's now just deeper than it was before. And it's kind of ragged.
Is this an opportunity to maybe like restore some of the wetlands function that's been lost by other, like the encroachments of the lawn and whatnot? Can it be any sort of plantings that can handle being inundated with water intermittently? Does such a thing exist, Alexis? Or is it even worthwhile, do you think?
I think it would. So yes, it could certainly be better than what it is. I think that a proper application of the seed mix would work fairly well. Some reintroduction of some woody plants would definitely help.
So could we suggest perhaps, I guess if we were lining this up to be something that I'd be comfortable approving, I would probably not care a whole lot about the irrigation, not care a whole lot about the patio, the path along that side of the property, I'm on the fence about. I don't feel real strongly about it. I think if it's just seeded and whatever happens to it is probably fine with me. But the path and the depression, I think that's something we need to address. Get rid of that gravel, maybe plant the depression, seed and plant the depression. And maybe we could be happy with that.
Yeah, I agree with Steve on this. The path along the far western corner to the back portion of the property, I don't have an issue with having a 3-foot path going there. But I'm not really thrilled with the gravel path that leads to nowhere, but would definitely invite people to take the path to nowhere and I agree. I think some kind of restoration would be much better if we focused on that. But what do other commissioners think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Hung up on the path, the 3-foot path on the side, but definitely the gravel path there is a point of concern. So I'm on board. I agree with you guys.
Yeah, I would agree as well, Karen.
Let me ask you a question. The gravel path was before just a dirt path. So there's always, I did not remove anything. And as I've showed pictures to Alexis prior, there was no vegetation in that area before. It's always been an open path to the back. I have pictures that I've shown her that showed it as a dirt path for as long as we've had the property. So I didn't remove any vegetation or damage that area there. And as far as the total amount of the wetlands, when I measured it, that's about 1% of the wetlands area. So it packs, and it would actually be a significant amount of effort now to remove that gravel out of that area, because I can't use it in the wetlands to fill in anything. I'd have to physically remove it from my property.
Put it under the new patio.
He can't use it. I've already asked him that. That was a good idea. I actually considered that. But he doesn't use that for that, because that was my first thought. Could I reuse it somewhere? So I'd have to actually physically remove it from the, unless I can use part of it to fill in the hole, which I don't think I can.
That's funny.
I do like that line of thinking, though. I actually thought of that. But again, since it's just covering, and I appreciate that it wasn't there before, but as I said, it was a gravel path. So I did not damage anything that was not there before. It was just simply dirt, and now it's gravel.
I think maybe we're seeing it as a trade-off, I guess, because there has been quite a bit of disturbance to the wetland, you know, with the hole and with all the other work that was done in there. And so I guess for me, and I think most of the commissioners agree that, it's not something we would have approved in the first place, right? We wouldn't, I don't, regardless of the property, I don't think we would have approved a gravel path through the wetland. So it's sort of like maybe they're counterbalancing each other. If we can get that area back to more of what the wetland would have been at one point, then it maybe kind of offsets some of the other damage that had been done.
Yeah, my question to Alexis is if Mr. DeSimone were to put this New England wetland wet mix in that area, is that a big, would it function there? Would it thrive and grow, or is it not something that's feasible? That we would need a more formal mitigation for that?
It's not a very large area. I think that I honestly think that the seed mix would do all right. It is about a 10 by 10 foot area. It is not very deep. And I can read off the seed mix that Mr. DeSimone is proposing. It has a mix of native sedges, bluegrasses, bulrush, milkweed, ironweed aster, blue flag, monkey flower, Joe Pye weed, that kind of wet meadow kind of mix. Some of them definitely are not shade tolerant. It is kind of on his lawn edge though, so it will get a fair amount of sun despite the remaining canopy trees around it. So it's just a wetland that is been overly manicured. And so I think that the seed mix is most likely the clearest path to a less manicured wetland area.
I think that's right. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it would be nice to see this back area restored as much as possible. I really don't have a problem with the sprinkler system as long as it stays out of the wetland.
The wooded wetland or the wetland itself? The lawn wetland?
Yeah, the one lawn wetland. But no, otherwise, it's been pretty disturbed back there.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
just bring up the patio. Does anybody have issues with the patio? It sounds like it's not, you don't need footings or anything. It's just going to be a rock patio.
It's going to be like a stone pavers patio. I did have the mason send me detail. He's going to dig down about 6 inches, and in that he puts in 5 inches of process, and then 3/4 inch of sand, and then 2-inch, I guess, paver stones on top.
Right. So your figure E shows that it's right. It abuts the house, and it's and I think you said it's 16 by 20 or something like that.
By 21 is the biggest we would put in. His estimate was the biggest area would go is 16 by 21. So it would be adjacent to that, basically coming right from the edge of the house over to the deck.
Yep.
So it's again, it's completely in the established area, but technically it's within 45 feet of the start of the markers,
Right.
of the wetlands markers, which is the established lawn portion.
I personally have no problem with you putting that patio there, but does any of the other commissioners have any concerns?
Yeah.
No.
None here.
Okay.
Patio's fine.
Okay.
All right. So to kind of summarize, it sounds like from what I'm hearing from the commissioners, we would like you to go back and check with your irrigation professionals to see what kind of reach you would get if you brought the irrigation close to the wetland line, the grass wetland line, and if it would provide you with enough coverage. It sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the commissioners do not like the gravel path and would prefer to see some sort of mitigation, some sort of wet seed mix back there to restore it. John Mailing is a little concerned with the depth of the hole that was dug. I think our concern would be that you don't overfill it so that now you change how runoff or how surface water moves back there. So if you're going to fill it, it's not that you're going to make a mound, but it's got to be something very limited. And I think the last thing was the footpath on the western side doesn't seem to be a problem with the commissioners. Did I forget anything? Oh, and Cheryl Brown would like to see maybe some more ferns or shrubs included, just to provide more, just to kind of beef up your mitigation plan. I think it probably would be appropriate just to check in with Alexis on what kind of, not frequency, but how much you would need, or, to beef up that a little bit more.
And I'd also want some guidance because these are very shaded areas. I'd need to have something that's shade tolerant as well.
Right. Yeah, would have to work with Alexis on that.
Okay.
All right, did I forget anything? Did I exclude anybody?
Nope, that's a good summary.
Okay. So we'd like to have you move on with this, but if you can work with Alexis, you'll definitely be on the next meeting's agenda.
Right, which is the 29th, I believe.
Correct.
So a question, because unfortunately, because of the recent cancellations for storms and other things, we're now heading into like almost the middle of September. And to do much, I need to do something soon. Is the intent to approve it at the next meeting, depending on what is proposed?
I think that if you satisfy our concerns, I don't see why, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis, I don't see why we couldn't make a decision.
I agree.
Okay.
So what do I need to, just so I know, I can give Alexis, I know it's hard to reach you because you're not in the office as easily. I'd like to reach out to you just to see if I need to amend my permit or just simply what I need to do so that we can have a clear path for approval at the next meeting.
Yeah, so you can give me a call tomorrow. I'll be in the office all day tomorrow.
Okay. And in the meantime, I will contact my irrigation companies and ask them regarding placement of how far down I can place the sprinklers and still be effective.
That's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you, Mr. DeSimone.
Thank you. Am
Thank
I
you
done
so
for the
much.
evening?
Yes, I think we're done.
All right, have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, I think we're going to now move on to discussion for S20-553 12 Holiday Drive, Lawton. Corrective action, restoration of a wetland, watercourse, and upland review area.
So this applicant also is filing for a corrective action application. This was a violation that we found after we went out to investigate the same complaint for activity at number 10. So they also received a notice violation in mid-July. The activity at this location, I don't think you had a show cause hearing for this one. Let me just, there are a bunch of photographs on the city's website under pending applications. There's photographs from the applicant, including some new photographs that were uploaded very recently. And then there are additionally a bunch of photographs from staff. And let me just go back to the, share my screen real quick. Find a map. Find a better map. Hold on one second. Share. So many buttons. And let's see if I can make it a little bigger. So this property is the one that we were just looking at 10. This property here is number 12. A similar wetland line kind of across the lawn area. Unfortunately, I don't have the wetlands shown and an aerial photograph. But a lawn area and an intermittent water course, more or less along the limit of lawn area. It's very similar to the property that you're just looking at number 10. Number 12 had a wooded wetland in the rear as well. And then this is a more recent aerial photo from in April, so it looks a little different, but this is number 12. This is the wooded wetland, and the area is now kind of a more maintained area of wood chip paths and active recreation. So I encourage you to go through and look at all of the photographs. I won't click through all of them.
Alexis, can you go back to that one that the aerial view?
Yes.
I've looked at these photographs and I had that one. Yeah, that one. My understanding is that the little kind of circle in the middle is the fire pit area.
Correct.
And, yeah, that's the fire pit area. And if you head, I don't know if it's north, but if you go straight up the screen, there's a bridge there that goes over something.
Yes, that
And
is the intermittent water course.
intermittent water course. Is that the same one that sort of rolls along to number 10?
Yes, so the intermittent water course is here on number 10, where the cursor is kind of going slowly.
Okay. So,
And then it's all the way across that way.
okay, so looking at the schematics that have come through on this, all of this, all of the pathway and fire pit and whatever that we see, including the bridge, is in the wetlands. Is that correct?
No, the very back portion of the property is not in the wetland. So this is the wetland report for this property. The wetland lines line up with number 10, who you saw previously. But if you recall, Mr. DeSimone at number 10 had a small upland area in
Right.
each corner of his lot. So
Right,
this
I
is
remember.
one of those upland corners.
Yep.
And the wetland on the adjacent property actually does kind of becomes narrower, widens, and then narrows back down. So a lot of the path, I'm just going to scroll down. So here is the bridge is in this location of my cursor.
Right. Okay.
This is the fire pit. And so the area on this side, which is labeled 45, that's an upland soil. It's really the area between the water course, which again is the lawn limit, more or less. And it's these areas within the wetland that have changed the most. And then additionally, obviously, the areas that include this path and these now kind of wood chipped gardens are within the upland review area, but
So-
not the entire area is within the wetland.
So south of 101 through 110 is review area, and north of 101 through 110 is wetlands. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
yes. Getting my bearings right. And so in the revised sketches, the applicant is proposing to, and I believe the applicant is here, so he can correct me when I'm done if I've gotten anything wrong. But to basically keep the wood chip path and the wood chipped gardens in place, but to supplement them with some additional native plants. Here we go. At this point, I believe what's being proposed is 4 foam flower plants and 5 great blue lobelias. And I think if the applicant wants to give a brief presentation, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for your time. You're getting the whole neighborhood tonight on Holiday Drive. Alexis, if you don't mind going to figure C, just scrolling up.
Tell me, yeah.
Yeah, keep going next. I had 2 more up.
There we go.
Thank you. So if you guys look, we moved in 2009. We've always had an existing lawn, established lawn. There was kind of a rinky-dink type of bridge here. We changed that and upgraded that, but there was a dirt path that the previous homeowner had that went to a compost pile, which you can see labeled on the side of my property. And then we also had a tree come down in Sandy, which left a big canopy, and Alexis was at our property and she saw where that was. And I finally got around this year to removing that. And then there were 3 large pricker bushes here that were removed as well, and a ton of poison ivy. And there's no cutting down trees, there's no excavation or anything like that. And if you scroll down to D1, please. So you can see we put in, we removed those pricker bushes, and there's a garden here. I'll be honest with you, we did not plant native plants. If I had known, I would have changed what we planted. Some of that garden falls within the wetland, some of it falls outside of that. And then we also extended a path at the rear of our property. We have 2 kids that are good friends with the kids that live right behind us. So we are trying to make it easier for them to get back there, make it easier for myself to get to the compost pile. And just to give you a little background on like kind of the rationale behind it, we're very wary of ticks. I've had Lyme disease twice. I've been hospitalized twice with Lyme. Last year, one of our kids had a tick, and luckily it wasn't Lyme. But that is something that, you know, we've been very wary of, and that was part of the reason for doing this. And then if you scroll down one more, as I mentioned, we have 2 boys, and as you can imagine, 6 and 7, they're pretty active. So they have like a ninja slack line here. There's a swing, and there's a zip line that goes the width of our property. So it's really kind of become like a recreation area for them, especially being stuck at home. And then if you scroll down to the last one, I would like to add some native plants into here, the highlighted section where it's labeled 1. Alexis was nice enough to send me a list of native plants. So I thought foam flower would go well within this area. And then on this side right here, we're proposing putting in the great blue labella. And again, that is another native plant as well.
So again, I recommend that you, for the commissioners, that you, for any application, visit the property if possible to have a look. But if you can't, in this time of COVID, at least go through all of the photographs that are uploaded onto the webpage.
I have a question, Alexis. How sure are we of the drawings of where the fire pit area is?
Okay, so yeah, I had mentioned that originally, and so these are his, Mr. Loughton's updated revised plans. So these were on the website. These are revised plans with a September 8th date on them. And I think I'm confident that these accurately reflect the location of the gravel path relative to the wetland line.
Just to clarify, it's not gravel, it's wood chips.
I mean, I'm sorry, the path.
Yeah.
Sorry. And in the photographs, the wetland delineation is, there are pink flags that you can see in each of the photographs.
So basically, we're looking at a wetlands area that is, can we go back?
Oh, sorry. I forgot I was screen sharing. Yep.
We're looking at a wetlands area that is, according to this schematic, south of the 101 to 110 line. And the area north of that line is pretty much playground area that abuts the wetlands. That's what we're looking at. Am I correct in summarizing it that way? I mean, I've seen the photographs of the ladders and the swings and, you know, that sort of thing. And I get the whole business about, you know, kids like your kids next door and whatever. That part's all fine. I just want to make sure that we're looking at you know, the access to the fire pit is in the wetlands, but the fire pit is just across the line and not in the wetlands, but it is adjacent to and, you know, hovering over the wetlands. And I guess the zip line, nobody touches the ground. So, you know, we haven't run into a zip line before, as far as I know. So I don't have any problem with that. But I just want to make sure that that's the only real wetlands area that this whole application basically covers is the area south of Otto's line.
Correct. So it's, just try to find some photos.
I mean, I've seen the photos.
Okay.
And you know, things like review areas and setbacks and whatever don't apply here, or do they?
No, they do. So you still have a 50-foot upland review area. Absolutely.
So where would that fall? Let's go back to a schematic and take a look at where that would, where that would fall.
Okay, so the 50-foot upland review area from the wetland line limit comes right up to the back of the house.
Right.
And then the 50-foot upland review area from the back limit of the wetland is just off the property line.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's not under our like purview in this case.
Right, I think the whole area would be regulated by the agency.
I
So
think the house is free and clear.
Right.
Yeah, I think the house is free and clear. All the recent activity that occurred in the rear would be under your regulatory jurisdiction. There are portions of work that are only within the upland review area, and then there are portions of work that occurred within the wetland and within the intermittent watercourse.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we knew what now we know what we're dealing with.
Right. And so just going back to the applicant, just so that I make sure. So this is the new garden area. And so you would propose to keep the existing plants and the bark mulch, but add some herbaceous native plants as well?
That's correct.
Okay. So it is the commission's first, it's obviously the receipt of the corrective action application. And I know that this one you did not have a show cause hearing, so you haven't seen the property at all. So don't chime in all at once.
So is the entire area outside of the mulch paths, is that also mulch? Like, so you have like, it looks like a lighter mulch path in there, and then the planting beds have mulch. How far does the mulch extend? Is the mulch through like most of the wetland area?
Well, most, if you look at the wetland line, a lot of that falls outside of Otto's, you know, where he numbered like 101, 102, 103. A lot of that area falls outside of that. There is some mulched area inside of that.
Yeah, so here's, all right, so here's a wetland flag and here is a wetland flag. So this area is wetland, and then in the back, like I said, most of it is wetland, mulch, but let me find a better. So again, Mulch area, this area is within the wetland. This is the swing shown on that one map. And this is where the zip line lands. But then the other areas, let's see if I can find a photo. I think I've shown this one before. Other ones, you know, there's
Yeah, let's hold on this one for a second.
existing vegetation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this vegetation is clearly the wetlands. That's pretty much the only undeveloped part of this whole piece of property is the shrubbery on both sides of the bridge. The rest of it is in the upland review, is in the setback area, all of it.
No, the other area, so I was standing in a mulched area within the wetland taking this picture. Let me, so let me just share a different, hold on 1 minute and I'll share some hopefully easier way to look at photos.
Nice going, Alexis.
I'm trying. Let's see if we can make that. Sorry, I have like a big narrow screen, so it looks big to me in real life.
Good.
So this is standing on the bridge, and so those are those clearly, you know, seasonally inundated areas, and those have been untouched, and they have the native vegetation still. It's the areas around them that includes some of the wetland area that have been altered. So this is kind of the other property line by what I presume is 14 Holiday Drive. So the intermittent watercourse would be along this area, but it's been mulched and stoned. So again, here's the lawn. This is a wetland flag that goes down into kind of a an altered area, but in the center, let's see if I can find another photo. That's another planted area, but the center remains vegetated. So again, this is the swing and the zip line landing pad. So native vegetation, kind of these little pockets of native vegetation, and then these pockets of mulch.
And then I see 2 pink flags there. And so that to the left of the flags is not wetland, and to the right is?
Correct. This is wetland. This is not wetland.
All right. And what's happening with the stones? Yeah, could you click on? Okay, no, actually, what happened with the stones in the water course? Yeah, yeah, right there.
The other side of the property. So again, here's the wetland flag number. Let's see. Wetland flag number, I believe 110. So on the northernmost side yard property line, and just kind of some rocking.
All right, I'm just gonna say it. I mean, you landscape the heck out of the wetlands, right? I mean, is that essentially what happened?
Yeah, very, very similar landscaping, and just more manicured, less wild.
So, I mean, regardless of how cool it is and how much I envy whoever gets to play in that area, my inner 6-year-old, I mean, doing something so invasive in a wetland and in the, adjacent to a wetland is pretty not cool, I guess, without being able to be more articulate right now. So I'm throwing that out there. Like it's really looks really great, but I don't think it really matches what we would say, for example, having been given the opportunity to approve this before the work was done, we would, I'm pretty sure, have not approved most of it. So
Yeah,
I guess I have a
Oh,
hard
sorry.
time. I mean, or am I misinterpreting what's happening?
I think the difficult part is like some of this is not in wetlands, and it's hard because of how the lines are configured, and you can kind of see that from Otto's map, where some of this does fall within the wetlands and some of this falls outside of the wetlands.
Yep. The whole place though is kind of treated as, a landscape scene, which again looks really nice. But so I think I'm just throwing it out there what I'm expecting to see as far as what would be a reasonable remediation would be, basically anything inside the wetland area gets restored as such, and then anything in the upland review area, it needs to be looked at closely as far as how it is addressed. I guess I would be open to suggestion there, I suppose.
Well, the sort of very faintly dotted line at the top of the property delineates, remind me again, Alexis, that's the 50-foot setback. Is that correct? Down here at 306, we have the upland line, and then the other line is back here by the half an inch, quarter of an inch from the property line, right?
So the dark
Back
number,
where it says 45, just north of where it says 45, is a little dotted line that runs through there.
no, I think that's a topographic line. I don't think that has anything to do with the upland review area. So let's see.
Well, let me rephrase it. How much of the swings and everything are in the upland review area?
All of it.
All that.
Thank you.
All of it.
That's what I was trying to get straight in my head.
So the entire backyard is either wetland or upland review area.
Got it.
All of the area that is on the property that is this upland woodbridge soil is still within the 50-foot upland review area.
Thank you.
Yes.
So my biggest concern, well, one of my concerns is that no matter what, for you to get to the upland review area, you're crossing through the wetland. Maybe at 110, there's a small gap where you can get into the upland review area that's not wetland, but in general, no matter what you do to get to that back portion of your property, you're crossing through the wetland. And it goes against everything that we do in protecting a wetland. We typically have setbacks in the upland review area. We never really butt up against a wetland in a recreational manner. And if anything, I've learned from Alexis is wood chips are really, really bad for a wetland. So the whole, landscaping, I agree with Steve. This is a beautiful area.
Really nice.
It's beautiful. It's really, I'm like so jealous, except it's in the wrong place. It doesn't belong here. So for me, this is a huge conundrum because I have no idea, honestly, how to fix this. I don't know. Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I don't have a clue on how we fix this. I mean, ordinarily, if the homeowner came in and presented this plan, we would say no. I mean, that would be pretty clear. But it's already existing, and how do we get it back to somewhat a natural state? And I don't know. I mean, that's all we got a staff for. So we'll dump it on her.
Well, I think what you're saying is that you, it's a corrective action application, and what I'm hearing is that you have looked at what's proposed and you don't feel that it adequately restores the function that wooded wetland previously had.
Yeah.
Made-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that would go back to the applicant to work on finding an adequate restoration plan. You know that, I think what you're articulating is that you know that this is not it. And that's.
And I have to say, I mean, I have 2 sons, I get it. But, you know, there may well be other alternatives. I'm not sure. They probably won't be as nice. They won't look as nice. But if some portion of this protected area has to be restored, in my view.
So how does that process look? Is that me working with Alexis and coming up with a plan to present to you guys at the next meeting?
I would suggest engaging a landscape architect or such that can give us some drawings that, while these are very good, maybe make it crystal clear what's being proposed, and then he or she could guide you toward what, you know, the agency is inclined to accept.
Yeah, I think we definitely need more ground cover and shrubs put back into the picture here, and we'll work from there.
I think the scope is such that it does require kind of a, I think, a professional, you know, approach.
I mean, I can't work with Alexis on this to try to resolve the issue, because like bringing in a landscape architect, it's going to get expensive real fast. And I'm willing to work with you guys. I hope you're not getting the impression that I'm not. You know, I just figured, you know, Alexis has been doing this for a while. She might be a good person to consult with of what might be some possible remedies to meet in the middle, so we're all on the same page.
So
Yeah.
it's been my general experience that, and we would never say, no, you know, you have to do this or you have to do that. It will probably prolong the whole experience if you don't consult with somebody professionally, but that's up to you, and I understand about the costs. It's not Alexis's job to make a plan for you. She can offer you suggestions, and she can steer you away from things that she knows the commissioners would likely have a heart attack over. But please understand, don't make your expectations such that Alexis is going to carry the burden of a plan, but she can definitely guide you.
I didn't mean to leave you with that impression. I just was hoping to use her as a guide.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, we've seen a lot of people do their plans, and sometimes they're very fine and sometimes they're not. So don't be surprised if we tell you to go back to the drawing board, but we always have an open mind, and like I said, we're not going to tell you what to do, but you can, I think, get a sense from our reaction that this is pretty significant and is going to take some work to mitigate.
I would suggest in addition that while Otto's schematic of where the flags are is adequate, when it comes time to actually look at what's going to be done, a proper plan that Alexis can coach on will make it very much easier for the commissioners to understand what's being done and see how it meets the needs. The plans we often work with show trees and other elements of the property so that we can easily see what's being proposed.
It also allows Alexis to follow and see that you've implemented the plan correctly when the plans are, laid out with the plants in their actual locations, and what's being planted and what's being planned. And that definitely is very helpful.
Sounds good.
So give me a call and we can talk more about resources and some previous applications. The City Hall is now open by appointment only, so I can pull other corrective action applications that have succeeded, others that have tanked, and you can kind of get an idea of the level of information and detail that I now think that I understand what the commission's looking for.
Okay, sounds good. I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Alexis, before we move on, are we going to get kicked off of this Zoom meeting, or we can keep going?
Now this one, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Won't get
Good.
kicked off like the last time.
Okay.
We've got Michelle in charge, so she's
All right,
good.
Michelle, you keep us going. All right, moving on to item C, S20-554, 164 West Cedar Street, Colonial Village, Norwalk Housing Authority, construction of a 69-unit residential complex with associated grading and landscaping adjacent to a wetland and a watercourse.
Karen,
Yes.
I need to recuse myself
Okay.
because my company has a contract to provide certification support services for this project.
Okay, will you be coming back?
I'll just hang out here and mute myself, or do I have to also not listen?
Mhm.
Or
I
I
think
just
you
not
can
talk?
listen, but you can't participate.
all right, I'm just
So-
going to mute myself and try not to make any funny gestures.
Yeah.
No, I
maybe-
think, maybe can you take yourself off of video?
Yeah, sure.
That way we won't see your eyes pop out of your head.
Got it.
Ed, are you also recusing yourself?
Yes, I have to because of a lawsuit a long time ago against Steve Winters, and no matter how I would decide on this application, it could be construed as being biased.
Okay, so I don't know, are you coming back or are you leaving for good?
I'm leaving for good. I'm out of here.
Damn, okay.
I'm going to be honest about it. I'm out of here.
Oh, wait a second. Two clarifications. One, I don't think it was with Stephen Winter Associates. I think it was Norwalk Housing Authority. I hope the lawsuit.
Okay. So there's way
Oh,
too much
it was-
information being going on back and forth here, but okay.
And then I'll say, do we have enough people and do I need to stay on or?
So Cheryl, John, Matt, are you planning on staying for the rest of the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Cheryl says yes, Matt says yes. So Steve, we have a quorum as long as nobody falls ill.
I'll email or call if that happens and I'll hop back on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you guys.
All right, next meeting.
Okay.
Take care.
Yep.
Okay, so for the record, Steve Clockey and Ed Halowinko are, well, he hasn't yet, but they are leaving the meeting. So we are down to 4 commissioners, Cheryl Brown, John Mailing, Matt Pence, and myself, Karen DeStefanis. So, okay, with that being said, go ahead and let's start with 164 West Cedar Street.
Well, I think what you read as far as the description is a pretty good summation. They are seeking to build some new multifamily residences on the lot that right now is kind of a field and a basketball court adjacent to the existing housing that Norwalk Housing Authority operates. I know the applicant is here, and I suspect that all the applicant team is ready to say something. So I'll just send it over to them. Again, it's the Inland Wetland Agency that you're in front of tonight. So our focus is on the impacts to the wetlands and watercourses that are on the property. I know that you are also in the middle of a special permit application in front of the zoning commission, and that application will be dealing with all of the other nuances of the development. But for tonight, we're focused on impacts to the wetlands and watercourses on the site. And with that,
Okay.
applicant.
Thank you, Alexis and Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Liz Suttree. As all of you know, I'm a partner at the firm of Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy. And I represent the developer owner of the property, the Norwalk Housing Authority. On this Zoom meeting tonight, we should have Greg Lapola, who's the project manager for the Housing Authority. Adam Babilski may join us. He's the executive director of the Housing Authority, but they also have their board meeting this evening. So hopefully Adam will join us later. If not, he'll join at whatever next meeting you schedule for this matter. Tom Maestros of Stullen Lee, he's the project engineer. Kevin McCutcheon and Chuck Croce of Ty and Bond, Tom is the project architect, excuse me. Kevin McCutcheon and Chuck Croce of Ty and Bond are project engineers. And Kate Throckmorton of Environmental Land Solutions is our wetland consultant, landscape architect. As Alexis and Chairman DeStefanis adequately explained, the project is by the Housing Authority. It's for property at 164 West Cedar Street. The property that's in question is 7 acres in size, but the overall Norwalk Housing Authority property on West Cedar Street is just about 30 acres. This is land owned by the Housing Authority. It's not a city-owned parcel or a city-owned park. Currently, there is Colonial Village, which is generally to the west of the proposed development of the 7 acres. That was built around the mid-1950s. It has 19 detached structures that provide 200 units of affordable housing, driveways, playgrounds, and other features such as that. And as I mentioned, the property that is the subject of this application is the northern vacant parcel, about 7 acres. It used to have a community center and a basketball court, but really right now it's just land that is not used. The proposal is to develop that acreage with 18 structures, which would contain 69 new units of housing ranging from market rate to deed restricted affordable under 830G of the general statutes to HUD units that are HUD supported, and then other supportive units of housing for families who had previously been homeless. So it's a mixed use, mixed income, mixed development, offering 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Around the back of the property would be a quarter-mile walking trail. And generally in the center of the project, you see it in the Colonial Village, right to the right of the words Colonial Village, there's a squarish, rectangularish building, a community center, about 5,400 square feet, which would offer after-school activities for children, tutoring, and other features for this development, along with on-site management for the property. Clearly, this application is before you because there are wetlands and watercourse that run along the northern side of the property. Kate Throckmorton will go into more detail, but just to give you a brief overview, here is the aerial map. Tom's being kind enough to show what the outline of the 7 acres is all about. There's a stand of trees along the, I guess that's the eastern property line, and comes along the northern property line as well. There is about, let me get my info here again, sorry about that. There's approximately 810 feet of linear intermittent watercourse that runs along the rear of the property, and about a ½ acre of total wetlands and watercourse on the property. And this describes it even better. In the green, you'll see along the top part of this plan, the wetlands and watercourse run along that property line adjacent to Cedar Crest Place, and comes then around that curve that we're suggesting, and that's the wetland area. We're proposing no work within the wetlands themselves or the watercourse. There's no loss of wetlands, no loss of watercourse. There is, however, work being proposed within the upland review area. In large measure, we're maintaining that 50-foot setback off the wetland line, with some work being proposed and undertaken in the wetland upland review area, including some of the dwellings, backs of the dwellings, and that walking trail that you'll see kind of goes around the back in between those proposed trees. But Kate will get into that a little bit more in her presentation. The wetlands that exist on the
Liz, can I interrupt for 1 second? Just before we go off this chart, I appreciate seeing how the wetlands are delineated there. Are the rectangles in the upper left, are those the proposed new houses, or are those some other people that live there, or what is that?
Just next to Cedar Crest Place. Yeah. Those are off our site. Those are dwellings and properties owned by individuals whose properties front on Cedar Crest Place, who have single family residences, nothing to do with this property.
Okay, and then so the construction, the work that's going to take place.
This is the northern property line.
That's the property line that's being described right now. The work that is going to take place is where we're now showing these dwellings. It shows 11D2, 10A, 9A, there's a community center, all of those structures that Tom is now pointing to, those are some of the proposed new dwellings. And behind those new proposed dwellings would be additional landscaping, walking trail, rain garden, and improvements to the existing wetland and water course, which have been somewhat neglected over the years. So with that, I think I'll just hand it over to Kate. She can describe to you the wetlands that exist, their functions and their values, and what we propose to do and how the wetlands will be improved by virtue of this project, if that's all right with you. Kate?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. Kate Throckmorton, licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions. Our office is in Norwalk on Knight Street. Our firm prepared the landscape and lighting plan, which is in front of you on the screen right now. It shows the overall site plan with specifically the wetland areas highlighted in green. Although it may be hard to see because it's small, but there's also a water course that's highlighted in blue, an intermittent water course that runs through the wetland. And also the upland review areas are also highlighted in color with the 50-foot wetland setback in purple, notated with a WB, and the blue, which is a dashed line, is the 100-foot upland review area for the wetlands and water courses. It might be, okay, I think we've just gone to a little more the wetland mitigation plan, which shows it at a little bit larger scale, so it might be a little bit easier to see. Nope, just go back to that last one we had, please. There we go. So as Liz described, the wetland system runs along the north and west side of the property. The wetland system has been impacted by disturbance and development over many years historically. And in fact, the primary water input for the intermittent water course is a head wall to the east end or to the right of your screen, which enters the wetland system, runs in a counterclockwise direction around the property and actually leaves the property through a catch basin at the end of the system. The wetland itself does have a wooded canopy, primarily red maples, but it does include ash and American elm, with an understory of significant growth of non-native invasives, primarily composed of multiflora rose, euonymus, and Asiatic bittersweet. There's also kind of a shrub edge to this wetland system. And again, that's about 20 or 30 feet inland of closer towards the homes. And that's really just a scrub area that, again, it's primarily invasives, a lot of mugwort, and Asiatic bittersweet in that area as well as Japanese knotweed. So the overall functions that would be found here would still include certainly conveyance of stormwater, trapping and sediment, uptake of nutrients, product export for habitat in the way of food and cover, groundwater discharge. So those functions still occur here, although it's somewhat limited due to the historic disturbance over many, many years. Now, just prior to the application being submitted, the wetlands line was rechecked, as this project has been going on for many years. It was suggested that the wetland lines be rechecked. So this plan actually reflects the most current wetland lines, and they actually have slightly been reduced from the plan that was over 10 years old. Although the regulated area hasn't really changed, but the wetland itself has become a little more disjointed. As you noticed, instead of being a continuous area, it's now broken up into 3 areas.
So WB is wetlands boundary, is that what that is?
That would be the 50-foot wetland setback.
Got it.
And as far as the general development, as Liz said, the buildings themselves are essentially out of the 50-foot setback. With the new wetlands line, there are some corners of the buildings that have come into that area, but I would say substantially we're staying out of the 50-foot setback. Clearly, there will be some disturbance and grading between the buildings and the wetlands. That's going to accommodate for the grading, but also a new recreational walking trail, which is going to be 8 foot wide. This is going to traverse the area behind these buildings. And that area is, we hope, will actually facilitate to help to maintain the new plantings that we're putting in there and ongoing maintenance of invasives that are going to be managed along the edge. The other significant portion of the improvements that are going to occur with this is that over the years there has been a fair amount of trash that's accumulated in here just because it's out of sight, out of mind. And with this application, all the garbage or material that's there is going to be removed. And we hope with this trail that it, instead of becoming kind of a depository for miscellaneous debris, that it will become more of a focal point and enhancement with the new plantings and maintenance of the invasives over a long period of time. So essentially, we're going to have plantings. I think that the darker green is highlighting the trees that we're going to be putting up within the 50-foot area, but we're also going to be improving both areas on side of the trail. So there's going to still be an established probably 30 to 50-foot area that will be a naturalized area, which are composed of groupings of shrubs and meadows. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. I think there's a few LED measures that have been incorporated that include a rain garden and also pervious pavement within the parking lot. And I'm going to turn it over to Kevin so he can go over that in a little more detail.
Kate, question?
Yeah.
Will all existing wetlands be preserved?
Yes, we are not doing, there's no development that is occurring in the wetlands. There are some work just along the edge, and that will really be included of invasive management and replanting.
And you have a new delineation of what the wetlands are, which presumably our staff will take a look at before we have to go all the way around the track on this.
Yes.
Yes, I will get you a copy of that previous delineation. When this property was subdivided in 2007, Commissioner Mulling, the wetlands were delineated as part of that application. And as Ms. Throckmorton said, it's the delineation is slightly different, but substantially similar. But I will be getting that to you so that you can all compare that for yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to, forgive me, Kate, but I got one question I want to toss to Liz
Sure.
at this point. Liz, is there a distinction that we need to draw between the housing authority of the city of Norwalk and the city of Norwalk itself? Are they separate?
Yes, they are. The housing authority is a separate entity unto itself, and the housing authority, as a housing authority, owns the property outright. It is not connected to the city of Norwalk. It is not a department or division of the city of Norwalk. It's a separate agency and entity.
Okay, and they own all of the property.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question as well for Kate. Looking at the plan, it looks like there's, I'm not sure if these are the shrubs that you were talking about, is that the kind of slightly brownish color that's along the sides of the path?
Yeah,
Or-
yes, it's highlighted in a very kind of a light hatching, but that's going to be the groupings of shrubs that's going to be on both sides of that path.
Okay, and outside of that, is that maintained lawn?
The
or-
lawn is going to be maintained basically around the structures. There's we'll get into this in a little more detail, but the path itself is a lower in elevation than the units, and there is a slope that comes up in some areas a couple feet, in some areas it's about 8 to 10 feet. And on that sloping area is where there's going to be a specific planting of shrubs and meadow areas. And then once it levels off to the area closer to the building, that will be maintained as lawn.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, I have a quick question for the invasives that are in the wetlands now.
Yes.
Is this the removal of them, or is that going to be by hand going in, or is there going to be machinery?
Yes, it's primarily going to be done by hand. There is going to be machines down there working on the path. So they may be implemented to do some work within their reach, but there's going to be no proposal of having any machine work in the wetlands itself.
Okay, thank you.
At this point, if Kevin or Chuck could come on and they can describe to you the stormwater management system that's been proposed. While they're preparing for that, just to let you know, this application and the application of the Zoning Commission, many of the documents submitted here, such as Stormwater Management Report and others, were also submitted to the Zoning Commission, and as is required, the application and supporting documentation are then submitted to Public Works, the Fire Department, the Health Department, Water Pollution Control Authority, think of what the other one is, and Traffic, Mobility, and Parking. Some of those don't have any bearing on your review or your analysis, but I just did want you to know that the Stormwater Management Plan is being reviewed and evaluated by the city's engineers. And just to clarify, Ms. Molling, yes, there is activity in the upland review area, but I thought I had said before, if I didn't, I apologize. There is no activity within the wetland or watercourse, and certainly no loss of wetland or watercourse as part of this application. So at this point, if Chuck or Kevin could come on, and they'll walk you through the stormwater management plan and more details on the site plan.
Thank you, Liz. My name is Kevin McCutcheon with Ty and Bond of 213 Court Street in Middletown, Connecticut. I'm a civil engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut for over 10 years. Current plan that you are looking at is showing the drainage, proposed drainage for this project, the stormwater management system. For orientation, essentially north is to the left of the sheet, with Cedar Crest Place, the properties on Cedar Crest Place on the top, off the top of the sheet. West Cedar Street would be to the right. At this scale, the drawing sets are split into 2 sheets. So the southern half of the site's on the sheet here. So there's West Cedar Street there. So the proposed grading and drainage for the site is it's designed to mimic the existing drainage patterns, and the proposed stormwater management it reduces the peak flow and volume below the current existing conditions. And we also have proposed measures to treat the water quality volume, which is commonly referred to as the first inch of runoff. The proposed drainage system here, it connects to an existing drainage system, kind of like a trunk line that runs through the site. It's on the left side of the sheet here, kind of skirts past the edge of that large light green wetland area. It goes past the left edge of the light greenish blue kidney-shaped rain garden area. And so the on-site drainage connects to that existing piping, which that existing storm drainage actually flows down on the sheet, which is west and southwest. So what we connect into is a drainage system that flows away from Cedar Crest Place neighborhood. So the drainage system consists of 4 below ground infiltration chambers that are spread throughout the site. You can see 2 of them on this sheet here in light blue. On the next sheet, there's 2 other large square rectangle areas in light blue. So those are large below ground infiltration systems, chambers. There's also in light blue a linear highlighted pipe that's it's oversized piping to further attenuate peak flows and volumes. So there's one system on this page and one system on the page before. There's a shallow rain garden that's the light greenish blue that is being pointed to right there. Each of these infiltration systems upstream of them have hydrodynamic separators for water quality treatment before the runoff gets into the system for water quality purposes. And they all similarly have outlet control structures, and that's what detains the peak flow and the volume and holds it back on site and slowly reduces it and promotes groundwater infiltration. And let's see, so Kate had mentioned the linear walking paths that runs near to the edge of the existing wetlands. That's proposed as permeable pavement. That's for purpose of recreational. It's ADA compliant. It's to provide that benefit that Kate had mentioned of incorporating the wetlands as part of the site. But we chose permeable pavement to minimize the disturbance and not add any impervious area within that upland review area.
And do you want to note the pervious paving for the parking area?
Yeah, it's outside the upland review area, but this project does have a significant amount of proposed permeable pavement, as shown in the darker gray along the access drive throughout the site. So that's essentially all of the parking spaces will be are proposed as permeable pavement. So the main drive is not is standard asphalt, but all the parking off the sides of permeable pavement to further help the meet the requirements for not increasing peak flow and runoff, providing LID measures for the proposed site. So
is that the minimal parking requirement there? Does that cover that?
They exceed the minimum parking requirements.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I'll let either Liz or Tom speak to that.
Sure.
Greg might be the best to speak to. Greg Lackwalla might be the best.
Well, let me just let you know what the requirements are. Under zoning, the requirements are 1.3 parking spaces per unit and some additional parking spaces for the community center. So the units would require about 90 spaces, and there's some additional parking required for the community center. The board of directors of the housing authority prefer to have more parking on the site than is necessary. So the number of spaces proposed is 138. But if Greg Lackwalla is on, if there's some additional information as to what the board of directors thinking was behind that, he could certainly join. But generally they'd rather have some more spaces on the site so there isn't parking on the street. There's no, it's not congested, and residents have enough in front of their units, and also that there's sufficient spaces for the use of the community center, both for staff and others. Greg, anything else you might want to add?
Yeah, I think, part of our board of commissioners wanted to make sure that based upon current needs of our tenants, that we found out that most of them have 2 vehicles in most cases. So they felt that we wanted to make sure that the residents who are going to be living here have enough spaces based upon the needs that we see in our other developments.
One other thing I could add, this is Tom Maestros, the architect of the project, registered architect in the state of Massachusetts, and NCRARB. The project has been in evolution for quite some time, and as far as parking requirements go, we were actually originally designing based on the 1.7 spaces per unit that the code had stipulated. The project had gone into hiatus for a few years, and over that period, the zoning regulations did change to go to 1.3. We were struggling to get to the 1.7, as some of these spaces that are shown here are not just for the to be utilized for the current parking, but as replacement parking for the existing units, as well as for the learning center that's going to be on site. So we're kind of in a little bit of a transition, but as Greg noted, the board is very much aware of the complications that are arising from there being insufficient parking in other Norwalk Housing Authority properties, and wanted to make sure that we didn't short sell or short shift the required parking that's going to be needed.
Okay, does anybody feel that the additional 48 spaces over the minimum requirement poses any risk, runoff risk to the wetlands?
Well, actually, what I wanted for Kevin to confirm is, did I understand you that what you were saying was that the property is going to be slightly regraded so that it's going from Cedar Crest Place towards West Cedar Street?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
We're mimicking the existing drainage pattern. So a good portion of the site is, the central portion of the site is up at elevated. So the top part of the screen here is the eastern side of the site drains towards the wetlands that's between our proposed site and the residences along Cedar Crest Place. But then also the opposite side of that drains towards the existing Norwalk Housing Authority. So there's a ridge and a divide there, and so we're mimicking that existing drainage pattern where areas behind the houses, the proposed houses are still draining towards that wetlands to the east, and so there'll still be flow from the grass there. All the impervious surfaces are being collected and run through the stormwater management system, which includes that rain garden that's near the wetlands. So we're not taking all the flow and sending it one way or the other. We're mimicking it, and we are. What maybe you had heard before is I was trying to describe that the existing drainage piping, the main that runs through the property, flows from Cedar Crest Place towards down on the sheet towards the southwest, and that's what we're tapping into. So all the ultimate discharge from our proposed storm drainage connects to that line that heads in that direction.
The other thing to note is that although we are planning on adding pervious paving to the parking areas, the stormwater system has actually been sized to compensate for that pervious paving area not contributing to the groundwater infiltration. So, Kevin, I think I've got that right. That's basically oversized for the storm capacities or anticipated storm events.
Correct. Simply put, oversized or conservatively sized, assuming that permeable pavement is not accounted for as permeable pavement.
Does anyone have any additional preliminary questions at this point? Because as of right now, that somewhat concludes what we were going to present to you today. If you have any questions, or staff have any questions, we're happy to answer them. And if we can't, we'll certainly get the answers to you.
Yeah, I had a quick question on the environmental land solution. I guess it's a letter. It had mentioned in the first paragraph, no work is proposed within regulated wetland area. However, portions of the proposed site development are within the regulated 50-foot wetland and 100-foot watercourse upland review areas. I found that a little confusing. Is that how that was supposed to be written?
Sorry.
Kate, there she is.
The wetlands and the upland review area are both regulated.
So you are proposing work in regulated areas, correct?
In the upland review area, correct, but not in wetlands.
Okay. Thank you.
You are proposing some work within the wetlands, but it's mostly mitigative, correct?
Correct. There are some handwork and planting that will be happening right at the wetland edge and probably within the wetland. But there will be no structures or significant grading in that area.
Within the 50-foot upland review area from the wetland.
No, there will be grading up into the wetlands and through that recreational walking path. But essentially the grading immediately dies down into meet grade right at between that path and the wetlands. So that's where there will be some close work, but there's not going to be any significant grading in the wetlands or disturbance in the wetlands. There will be hand finishing work that will be done for invasive species and planting and mitigation work.
Has there been any write-up on that? Is that cited anywhere? Like the type of work and specifics of the work?
We'll make sure that that's specified for the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
I would suggest to my colleagues that whereas the city of Norwalk has makes efforts to attempt to balance development and nature and conservation, the Housing Authority is charged to do nothing more than build houses and to build them wherever they're allowed to build them. And that we need to keep in mind that they have no particular compulsion to preserve anything other than that which is most specifically required of them by the state. So we need to look at this very, very closely as we go forward. It's fine to mitigate, it's fine to take away invasives. What the wetlands do is less concerning to us than what they are. And that's something I think that we all need to just be absolutely certain that we're watching as closely as possible.
Well, if I may, just to respond, you are charged with evaluating the project that is before you. What we propose by way of impacts to wetlands and watercourses, and whether or not those impacts are considered adverse and have an adverse impact on the wetlands and watercourse. And we will certainly, I think the Housing Authority is cognizant of not only its role to provide housing to those in need, but also to be stewards of this piece of property moving forward. And they are aware and have taken the effort to make sure that, as I have said, the wetlands are not being lost, they're not being filled in, the watercourse is not being lost or filled in. Both will be improved as a result of this. And there will be mitigation in connection with those areas that impact the upland review area. And as we've indicated in our application, we don't believe that what we're proposing does have an adverse impact on the wetlands and the watercourse, but quite the opposite. I think the Housing Authority has done an excellent job to consider the resource that is there and to make it a better functioning resource, both just as a wetland resource and also a resource for habitat for wildlife, and also to provide housing that is necessary for its population.
You have open 7 acres. How many people are you anticipating moving into that, what is now open spaced? I know there's 69 units, but how many residents will be occupying that space?
It's across the board. There are a variety of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. The actual number of residents, I don't know right now. I can certainly find that out and give a best estimate based upon the number of bedrooms, but I don't have that right with me. I will certainly have that for you. And keep in mind, this is just land that has not been used, with the exception of it being a unused ball field years ago and a community center that had since been demolished many years ago. The plan had been to develop this property by the Housing Authority over time, and it is finally coming before you with a plan that I think is reasoned and well thought out.
So nobody uses the field right now?
Unless it's members, residents who live at Colonial Village, and on occasion, rare occasion, individuals who have approached the Housing Authority to rent the field to have an event or a ball game, it's virtually unused.
How about the basketball court?
I think the basketball court is used infrequently and it's not in the best state of repair. But that's about it. It's the field is not used all that frequently.
Okay.
Hey, can you tell me what is the closest distance from the walking path to the edge of the wetlands?
I don't have a measurement right now, but I would say that the path itself is 8 feet. So I'm going to say 8 feet at its closest, which is going to be behind units 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, the walking path is going to be raised above the wetland. What's the change in elevation?
Well, it's gonna vary. The whole the topography of the entire wetland from the east on the right side of the page to the left is about 10 to 12 feet. So it varies, but I think the intent is that the wetland side of the path should meet the existing grade at that edge.
And if Tom can go to the next page or two, you can see that the intent is for the path to essentially follow existing grade down at the wetland elevation. There's very little grading shown on the wetland side of that path. Other than in a few areas to maintain ADA slopes, there was a little bit of required grading, but for the most part, that path is following existing grade along the edge of the wetlands. The slope is therefore on the other side, opposite of the wetlands. The path kind of helps define the slope in the developed area from the wetlands.
Are you proposing any kind of demarcation or any kind of boulders, fencing to keep people on the path and not wander into the wetland?
There's no additional demarcation, but the area will be substantially replanted. So, and possibly adding some signage. So at this point, we did not think that was a needed requirement, but we'll look into that if you feel otherwise.
I'm kind of on the fence about the path. I don't like the path, actually. I'm a little concerned that people will then now take the opportunity to use the path to go into the wetlands and dump more stuff in eventually. I don't know. I understand that your plan is to remove stuff that's already in the wetland, but how are you going to police it so that things don't get put in there?
Just, if I may, two things. One of the reasons why the path is proposed is with any development, we are required to provide a certain amount of recreation space. And the thinking was that this was a more active, a space that would be more activated for a cross section of the population rather than basketball courts or other similar recreational opportunities that don't lend themselves to everyone taking advantage of it. And since in the community center that's proposed, there would be on-site management, there would be a greater opportunity for the housing authority to police that which happens on the site. Some of the debris that's been deposited into the wetland, frankly, has come from residents on Cedar Crest Court, and we've seen evidence of that happening. But with having staff on site, and they can certainly be charged with making sure that the wetland functions properly and is properly maintained. Right now, there isn't anything there, and you're right, it's become an opportunity for anyone to do what they please. I think there'd be better control once, and if this project is approved, with staff on site to maintain that kind of control and oversight.
We had also, as we were initially doing, conceptualizing how the development could interface with the wetlands, it was our envisioning, and maybe just my envisioning, that to allow the residents to interact with the wetlands area is a positive, not a negative. A nature trail kind of experience was something that we thought would be a benefit, both to utilize that area that had been underappreciated for a long time and give the residents a way of encountering yet respecting that open space. So we thought it was going to be very much a positive, not a negative. If it would be interesting to know the Conservation Commission's approach to how people would encounter or interact with this open space. It's, in my experience, again, this is in Massachusetts and in the Boston area, is that the goal is to preserve and protect, but not isolate. So that was kind of an approach that we were taking in this kind of conceptualization of how that path and the population would work with that wetlands area.
And if I may add a little bit to that, Tom, the alternative of no path back there makes this similar to out of sight, out of mind area with very limited access that can also be thought of as an opportunity for, you know, dumping and trash to collect out of sight, out of mind, and be that could tend to be a negative as well.
You guys know, what is the required amount of recreational space on this project here?
Tom Maestros, correct me if I'm wrong, but we need 200 square feet of area per dwelling unit.
That's correct.
It's 250 square feet.
I think, Kevin, it's like 14,000 square feet of open space, designated recreation open space.
Recreation area, not open space. Yeah, but it's about 200 square feet per dwelling unit. So we need just shy of
dedicated recreation space. We have far exceeded that as far as open space and usable open space as far as the residents go.
Thank you.
But taking Chairman DeStefanis's concern, we can certainly take a look to see if there are other vehicles to maintain and protect that which would exist on the other side of the walking trail. And we'll look at that internally and see if there are other options or other inclusions to the plan that might address that concern.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I understand what you're saying, Tom, and in a perfect world, I agree with you. It's wonderful to get close to nature. What we've seen in this town over the years is that people sometimes take advantage of getting close to nature, and if there isn't a split rail fence or huge boulders preventing someone to enter, they will enter. So I just wanted to know what kind of plan you had in mind.
We'll take a look at that more closely.
And so the drivers behind this plan for the housing authority is their state requirements. Is that for providing affordable housing?
Any development of 10 units or more in the city of Norwalk in certain zones, including this one, requires, 20 units or more requires 10% affordable deed restricted units based upon section 830G of the general statutes. There are at least 7 units that will be deed restricted to meet that requirement, but the housing authority has other obligations to meet populations that are above that and below that. So that's why there are a mix of incomes and types of housing stock that will be provided as part of this development, in addition to the affordable under 830G. As I said earlier, there will be some supportive housing. There will be housing that is HUD-backed housing and also market rate. So it's across the board of having a more wide-ranging residency in this development.
The goal also is to provide as much accessible and as many accessible units as possible. All of the ground floors of the multifamily units, those are 5 and 6 unit buildings, will be fully accessible and to meet those needs.
What did you say about you said 50? I lost you for a second.
I'm sorry, 50, who you were asking?
You were talking about the ground floor accessibility and something about 50 units, or I just lost.
Maybe I was mumbling a little too much, but no, I didn't reference anything to 50. I was saying that all of the ground floor units in the 5 and 6 unit buildings, which are these larger structures, the D buildings, are all can be made fully accessible.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to quickly address. I know that there are some people listening in from the public. There are regulatory frameworks that we have to work with, and there are times for public comment, and then there are times where we cannot yet have public comment. Tonight's meeting is just the receipt of this application, and at the receipt of the application, it is at this point a conversation between the Inland Wetland Agency and the applicant. It is a significant regulated activity, and it will require a public hearing. And once the public hearing is scheduled, any member of the public can comment, but there cannot be any public comment tonight. So I just wanted to let you know, if you're raising your hand on Zoom, we see you, but we cannot acknowledge you or have you speak tonight. Thanks. Back to the applicant.
That concludes what we plan to present this evening. There are a few things that you've asked us to look at and to come back with additional information. We'd be appreciative if you could let us know what your timing is for a public hearing, so that we can adequately prepare and plan our schedules, and then coordinate that with the schedule we have with the Zoning Commission that is ready to schedule its public hearing. I would suspect sometime late October. So if you have any thoughts on that, if you would share them with staff and let us know what your schedule is and timetable for a public hearing, we would be most appreciative.
So with that, Alexis, what do you, when do you think we would schedule this?
So your next scheduled meeting is September 29th. So at the end of this month, you'll be returning to your other than that one, to your usual Tuesdays. So you have a meeting scheduled for September 29th, and then October 13th, and then October 27th. We would need an extension from the applicant to get to the October 13th meeting. I believe that is just beyond the 65 days from when the clock technically started ticking.
We'd be happy to give you
missed some meetings due to the storms and other issues.
We'd be happy to give you an extension, but I think the executive order by the governor extended that deadline out as well. But if you do mention, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Well, let me ask the other commissioners, since we just make a quorum, and I assume that Ed and Steve won't be moving forward with this with us. So do you anticipate other commissioners not being able to make the September 29th or the October 13th meetings?
I plan to be at both.
It appears that I'm available.
I'm available for both as well.
Okay.
May I ask staff, would there be sufficient time to prepare legal notice for us to then send the required notifications to neighbors between now and, that would have to go out pretty quickly.
September 29th.
Right. So today it's so on my end, I just do the legal notice, and I can certainly do that. It really goes back to the applicant. You do have a lot of owners of record that are abutting and or directly across the street.
So would it be preferable then to just move, plan it for the first meeting in October?
I think that would be preferable, because you also have asked us additional questions, and we'd like to respond to those. And I don't know if those will generate additional questions or comments, but I think it's appropriate to get the answers to you. And if you would schedule for October 13th, that gives us plenty of time to confirm all of the neighbors that need to be notified and send them notice within a sufficient amount of time in accordance with your regulations. I think that might be best.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have an issue with that?
No.
Okay. So Alexis, do we need a motion, or can we just plan it?
A motion would be great.
I'll make a motion to have a public hearing for application S20-554, 164 West Cedar Street, Colonial Village, Norwalk Housing Authority, for the scheduled Conservation Commission meeting on October 13th, 2020. And the public hearing would start, we don't have any other public hearings, correct?
Correct.
The public hearing would commence at 7 p.m. Do I hear a second?
I'll
second
second it. Sorry.
All right, Cheryl Brown makes a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
Okay, I think that's a majority, so we'll have you on the schedule for October 13th for the public
And we'll
hearing.
keep you on the agenda for the next meeting as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Waterfall, Kate, remember.
All right then. So I guess we're going to move on to our next item, which is S20-555 16 Hilltop Road, Laurel Rock. Temporary wetland and watercourse crossing for removal of trees and landscaping activities in and adjacent to a wetland and the watercourse.
Okay, so this application is on Hilltop, which is down on Wilson Point. There is a small inland wetland and watercourse system that is at the very rear of this property. Let's see.
I have no paperwork on this at all, so I'm just gonna.
Right, I will share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here on the top left is Wilson Point. Valley View, not Valley View, Hilltop Road is actually off the screen. Number 16, Hilltop is accessed from Hilltop, which again is to the left and just off of the site plan. It is a through lot, and so it also fronts Valley Road. There is a wetland watercourse system that runs parallel to Valley Road. As you can see from the topography at the rear of the residence, it is quite steep and steeply slopes down to the wetland watercourse. The applicants had some large trees that fell down. They are seeking to cross the wetland in the location of this black area here to get to the slope where they have had some trees go down. They also wish to do some planting within the shaded areas. So that's the application in a very, very little nutshell. And I think that Mike Palmer is here representing the applicant. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mike Palmer with the Lower Rock Company. Yeah, pretty straightforward. There was a lot of, you can see on the plan, there's trees that are outlined in red. Those are the ones that actually fell and uprooted during the storm. Access from the top side of the property, the uphill slope, would be extremely difficult as far as getting around the property, septic systems, and the best means of access rather than dragging everything uphill is to bring it downhill. So the trees in red have fallen, completely uprooted. And they're also, so this is also an accumulation. Previously, we've discussed some pruning and tree removal in the wetland. Alexis discussed that with Chris Powers previously, which could have been done under a septic contract permit, but we're kind of jumbling this all into one. So there's a couple of trees to be removed, which are outlined in black, which are in slow decline. The idea to this is to get the machinery we need across the timber matting on the wetland side, get into the shaded area in pink, remove the trees, and then restore the area. So we'd like to do some native meadow mix along with some native plantings in the green ovals that you can see here as well. A lot of that is really determined by how much damage, not damage, but the machinery that crosses over is going to tear up what's existing. So it's a combination of removing existing plant material that's invasive and also restoring that area to a native meadow look.
So the rest of the application is on the website and will be delivered to you briefly, but they have some aerial photographs again of Valley Road on the right, the residence on the left, and the area of trees. And then examples of timber matting. This is the area, Valley Road, in the front of the photo. And then this is the area where they would access the intermittent water courses at the base of this valley, along Valley Road. Again, Valley Road in the rear of the photograph, access along the blue lines. And then there are some photographs in the application of the significant trees that fell during the storm. Actually, it was the storm that you were supposed to be having a meeting that night. And when all of you lost power, some more photographs of the trees. And then I believe this is one of the trees proposed to be removed. You get the idea.
Mike, are these trees going to be cut up and left on site, or they're taken off site? Are they going to be chipped? What's going on with that?
They're going to be taken off site completely. The entire tree itself and the root system that's uprooted is the plan.
Do you have an erosion control plan to protect the wetland?
No, we can definitely put together a plan for the town's review.
I'm just thinking with the steep slope and machinery that could be important.
Sure.
What kind of machines are going to be making their way back there, and what would you estimate the slope to be currently?
It's pretty steep. You can see by the contour lines. The only real machine that we can get in there would be, I think it's labeled out in this, the Komatsu PC200, which is about, I think that's a 50,000 pound machine. So it's a good size excavator, and really the only machine that's capable of pulling the stuff off the hillside. So it would be cut up into 15-foot pieces big enough to go onto a log truck. The majority would go out that way, and then the stumps would be removed in larger dump trucks as well. The idea to the track mats is to be able to pull a truck just off the road and load from there, because we do have power lines that are in the way on that loading zone side. So we have to get underneath those power lines in order to load those. But it is a fairly steep slope, and it goes up to a rock ledge.
Actually, Mike, if I may just jump in for a second. This is Chris Powers, also with the Lower Rock Company. Our client is also interested in planting a meadow in this area, and we could use jute mesh matting to help with the erosion control in that red shaded area in the map that we saw previous.
So what is the vegetation on the hillside currently?
It's a mixture of riverbank grape. There's some wild invasive roses, and also it's kind of a mishmash of different species, some Japanese stilt grass as well.
Are you concerned more about erosion just during the project or after the fact during seeding?
A little bit of both. With a large machine going through there and a steep slope, I could imagine that the ground could be torn up pretty well. And when you're seeding, you'll be, exposing the soil as well. I think jute matting would probably be a very good approach to when you actually plant the meadow on something that looks that steep.
Yep. Yeah, we could, I mean, during construction, we can most definitely install 1 or 2 rows of silt fencing on the lower side of that hillside, which would help anything running off into the wetlands themselves in the area of construction, kind of coming from the point of the track mats where it comes across and running along the green edge of the wetlands there during construction. And at least that would stay outside of the wetlands and hopefully minimize any destruction, because that's got to be dug into the ground to work effectively.
Any other comments?
Nope.
So I guess I would recommend just a quick revision of the site plan that's up on the screen in advance of the meeting, well in advance of the meeting of the 29th. And sounds good.
I just had one question. It's private back there, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Is it private to get back into Wilson Point? If we wanted to do a site visit, is it accessible?
I believe so. There is a gate person there.
Okay.
Yeah, just Matt, just let them know if you do a site visit. Just let them know that you're with the Norwalk Conservation Commission and you need to do a site visit at the rear of 16 Hilltop.
Okay.
And you'll be fine.
Wouldn't be a problem. Thank you.
I guess the only other question I have, Alexis, is on this map that they have right now, they show native meadow, native plantings, but it isn't very specific. Would we want them to be more specific on this plate?
That would be ideal, yes.
I think so too.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll put together the site plan that reflects some SEC measures, and we'll also include the species of the meadow mix and the plantings that are involved.
That would be great.
Yeah, for the plantings, the kind of a general, better idea of the number of plantings and the species.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, I think if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next application. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, so now we're going on to S20 556 21 Homer Street, Hurwitz. Installation of an in-ground pool with associated grading adjacent to a wetland and a watercourse.
Okay, this is Homer Street, which is right off of West Rocks Road near Blue Mountain. What am I trying to think of? Blue Mountain Conservation Development that you saw probably about 10 years ago. Blue Mountain.
Yep, I know the one.
Something it's called.
Yeah, I think it's Blue Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Alexa, I'm sorry, is Tom in here? Because, is Matt in here? Because he's helping me.
Yeah, oh yes. Hold on 1 minute.
You
Michelle,
gotta let him in, I think, yeah.
if you could please let Matt pop in.
All right, I think he's all set.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, well, and then for the next application, we might need to move the other person over as well. But hi, Matt. Adjacent to Blue Mountain Court. So let me just, I'll just do a quick aerial screen share. Oh, I am screen sharing. Sorry about that. Okay, so here is West Rocks Road, just off the on the left. Blue Mountain Court, which is the conservation development that I could not remember. The house here is 21 Homer Street. The proposed activity is in their backyard. They are adjacent to an off-site wetland and watercourse, this pond, and therefore require a permit from you. With that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Pop.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist. If you could put up maybe the site plan, if you can get that.
Yep.
Yep. We can go over it.
Where?
It's a 0.4 acre site. The site contains an existing house, a driveway, and patio to the back. The wetland line is that the thin red line at the top of the sheet is off the site, and it's a wooded wetland. Up to that wetland line, the rear backyard is maintained as lawn. There's a large tree near the center of that rear backyard. We are proposing a 15 by 30 swimming pool that's located about 10 to 15 feet off the rear of the house. The area currently is maintained as lawn. It's a kind of a flat plateau where the pool is going, and then it slopes down about maybe 6 to 7 feet from the pool area down to the wetland line. The pool is located 55 feet from the wetland line, and the toe of the disturbance, the toe of the slope, is about 30 feet from that wetland line. You can see that 30 feet distance, so that's from the toe of the disturbance. I estimate about 75 cubic yards are to be removed from excavation, and that soil would just be placed on a hillside adjacent to it, grade down to meet the area further down by the wetland. There's no tree removal proposed. We have erosion controls, wrapping silk fence, wrapping the construction site. We have anti-track impediment where they're to the left of the house, where the driveway is. It's really easy access to the site. And we have a stockpile that's adjacent to the house. We are proposing a row of shrubs down, native shrubs down by the wetland. We have 12-foot cleft in the back. And I think it'd probably take about a month or so to complete the project. So that's it in quickly. Again, it's a lawn area, and we're disturbing, again, a wooded area will be disturbed. We have a construction sequence on the plan also.
Matt, are you planning to take any of that stockpile material and spreading it on the property, or is it going to go off-site?
Some of the material from the pool where the excavation is, it's going to the west of the pool. You can see the proposed grading right there, the new contours, 144, 142, 140, 138. So that fill will be placed on that hillside adjacent.
And how are you going to stabilize that?
It will be maintained as lawn, so we just seed it with a lawn mix.
Okay.
And so I think it's a 1-on-3 slope. So it might even be a 1-on-4 slope. So it's going to be about the same grade as what's there currently. The same pitch.
Alexis, with the amount that's being stockpiled, does that require any kind of public hearing or anything? No. You have to unmute.
Sorry about that.
All right.
That was brilliant what I just said. No, it does not trigger a significant regulated activity. The amount of grading did trigger the intermediate permit application. So just for background, originally this was a minor application. But once I looked at the grading necessary to put the pool in, it was the grading that actually triggers the larger intermediate wetland permit application.
Did have the wetland line flagged by automobile about maybe 2 weeks ago or so. In the town maps, the wetland line actually encroached onto the site. So by going out there and him actually going out to the site, we verified that the wetland is actually off the site.
Yeah, so that definitely helped.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions? No. And we don't necessarily need to have a public hearing for this, so I don't feel like we need one, but do you?
No.
Alexis? No. Commissioners? No.
No.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yay!
I wish you were first on the list.
Thank you.
We can't make a decision on this tonight because we just received it, but we'll have you on the next agenda, the next meeting's agenda, which is September 29th.
Yeah,
29th?
29th.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Thank you for your
so much.
patience.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You
Night.
too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Now we go to discussion and or decision.
They're gonna give us this permit and they made me sit on there.
Uh-oh. All right, next is discussion and or decision S20-551, 284 New Canaan Avenue, land
Maybe-
tech for Indian
Michelle,
Hill.
can you mute Joshua Hurwitz, maybe? I don't think that they realize they're still on.
They're still on. It could be bad. Okay, 284 New Canaan Avenue, land tech for Indian Hill RE LLC, corrective action, restoration of a wetland and adjacent upland review area. And again, Peter Romano.
I'm not Peter Romano.
You look great, Pete.
So,
right.
yeah, you can take it.
This, you've actually been looking at this for a while. And at your August 1st meeting, I think you had received a staff memo for that meeting that included a draft resolution to approve with some conditions. I think I included it in the most recent email that I sent out earlier today. So again, it's a corrective action application. The property owner did some ancillary work that ended up disturbing a small portion of the wetland directly adjacent to the driveway entrance to the property. The applicant has come up with the assistance of Land Tech with a proposed restoration plan. And I think that the restoration plan, if implemented as shown on the plan, is adequate. I do recommend if you do decide to approve it, and if you do like that mitigation plan, that it include the 15 special conditions within the draft resolution for approval. And
wait, 15 or 5 conditions?
5. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Long day. 5 special conditions. And those generally establish the time frame to complete the restoration work and a bond to ensure that the proposed shrub plantings are installed and maintained.
All right, commissioners, any discussion on this? Any questions that you want clarified?
We have Pete Romano looking like Chris Allen from Land Tech, and it looks like Robin Penna is also here if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions, just a minor comment, and I'm not so sure it needs to be written down or anything, but if they could clean up the litter on and around the wetland, that would be nice.
Certainly ask them to do that.
Thank you.
So any other comments or clarification? Do I hear a motion? Anyone? Anyone?
I'll make a motion.
Yay. Go ahead.
The first one, I don't know the technical language. Make a motion for the corrective action restoration plan for 284 New Canaan Avenue.
Sure, application S20-55.
All right. Yep, for application.
Actually, it's 551. Hey, Alexis, your memorandum. Yeah, it's 551. Sorry, Matt.
551, sorry.
551.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the correction action plan.
Okay, and you probably would want to include the 5 conditions that are outlined in the July 30th, 2020 memorandum from Alexis Carrick-Ketty to the agency.
Yeah, I have number 1 in front of me. Can I just pass this motion on to someone?
Okay. This was good.
I lost the second one, but I read it earlier, so I'm okay with it.
Okay.
You can also just say that you adopted the draft resolution in the memo. Boom.
Adopt the draft resolution in the memo.
There you go. Okay, so that motion has been made by Matt Pence. Do I
Second.
hear a second? Second by John Mailing. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, just raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you, Chris
Thank
Allen,
you.
AK Peter Romano. Have a very nice evening.
Thanks, you too.
And I guess Alexis will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Will do.
Thank you. Matt, that was good. That was very good. Thank you.
I'll get it down eventually. That was my first one, so
I know. You did all right. So that was good.
thank you.
What is that called? Trial by fire or something? Whatever. All right, now we go to the bond release reduction, S16-492, 129 Newtown Avenue, Christakos. That's right? Release of bond held, $3,500 for corrective action, removal of vegetation, installation of lawn, and construction of a shed in a wetland adjacent to a water course.
It looks good. Brenda Hertanic recently did an inspection of the property. Again, it's a 2016 corrective action application for a cleared wetland. They replanted the wetland and it looks fantastic. So staff would recommend at this point release.
Okay. John Melling, you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. John's made the motion to approve the full release of the bond for S16-492, 129 Newtown Avenue. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, yay. Cheryl Brown seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, looks like it's unanimous. Moving along to S18-526, 41 Bow Street, Mr. Garfunkel. Release of bond held, $700 for corrective action, landscaping in and adjacent to a wetland and a water course. This is that terrible, terrible bamboo. What happened?
Yes, there is still some bamboo, but it is greatly reduced on his property. It looks like he's been able to keep it at bay, and he had proposed continuing his work and replanting his yard, and it all looked good. So staff would also recommend full release.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to release the bond of $700 for S18-526, 41 Boat Street. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by John Mailing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, it's all unanimous.
Excellent.
Moving on to the final bond release, S19-544, 3 and 5 Chipping Lane. Goodwin, reduction of bond held for corrective action fill removal and landscaping in and adjacent to a wetland and a watercourse.
So this was a corrective action application that you had approved in January 2020.
Yeah.
And they have completed the work. Your approved permit required a bond of $5,705. $4,540 of that would still be held for 2 full growing seasons. They had to, as per their plan, they planted a pretty significant amount of replacement vegetation for the area that had been disturbed. And so staff would recommend the reduction of the bond by $1,165. And that amount went to sedimentation and erosion controls, silt fence, seeding, and the hiring of a monitor. One of the conditions of the permit required that a soil scientist or landscape architect certify that the fill removal had been adequate. And so the landscape architect was on site multiple times and worked with the property owner to get the fill down to the original topography. So that was completed. So I'd recommend releasing, well, that amount is included in the suggested $1,165 reduction.
So curiosity, who was the monitor?
Kate Throckmorton.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion on this? So I'll make a motion for S19-544, 3 and 5 Chipping Lane, Goodwin. For, would it be a release?
It would be just a reduction.
Okay. The reduction of the bond, the original bond, which I didn't write down, by $1,165 to address the sediment and erosion controls and on-site monitoring.
Second.
That's my, yay. So motion's been made by Karen DeStefanis, seconded by John Mailing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. That's passed unanimously. Yay. So now we move on to the July 16th, 2020 minutes, draft minutes. Does anybody have any changes?
I move we accept the July 16th, 2020 meeting minutes. No second.
Okay, but I had a little change.
But you can put that in discussion, right?
Okay. All right, so I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I have some, just one minor change on the second page, the second sentence, just that if you can insert, he noted that he had met Conservation Office staff. So that he would be inserted in there.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, so moved. Yay, so now we go to public comments. I don't think we have any public left here. Comments of staff. Tell us.
Yeah, no, I'm done for the night.
Good. Comments of commissioners. Any commissioners have any comments? Okay, well, I thank you all for being here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you on September 29th. Okay, do I hear John Mailing saying that he makes a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I don't know.
I heard that.
Motion that we adjourn.
Okay. I'll second that. Thank you guys very much. Have a really nice week.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, you too. Thanks a lot.
Okay, well.
Happy birthday, Michelle.
Thank you.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
Have a good night.
On your birthday.
Thank you.